Hey and welcome, I'm Hammy, and in this video I'll be reviewing everything we know for sure about the character and weapon in Overwatch known as the Doomfist. Given the excitement around Doomfist being a candidate for the next Overwatch hero in 2017, I'm going to go through and remind us of what Blizzard have said in the past about potential new heroes, speculating if Doomfist could fill this mould, reviewing the lore facts or what we know for sure about Doomfist right now, pre-Terry Crews hype, and then having a good old speculate on what might happen in future. So, why might Doomfist be next up? Ever since the Overwatch reveal at BlizzCon 2014, the Overwatch community has been fascinated by the idea of Doomfist, his power, and his weapon of choice. But Terry Crews aside, and don't worry, we'll discuss him later, what other reasons might there be for Doomfist arriving this year as an Overwatch hero? Firstly, if you go back in the interviews that have been given by the dev team, we have had it on record that Blizzard are interested in more supports and tanks. The last we've heard, Aaron Keller was interviewed by Musalk himself at Gamescom 2016, around the launch of Eichenwald. He said, "The game could definitely use more tanks and supports. I could see us adding more of those in the future sooner rather than later." I know it's a one-off comment, but given that supports and tanks have 5 heroes each compared to the 7 of offense and 6 of defense, and that our first 2 heroes so far have been a support and an offense, it's not unreasonable to think that tank could get some love next hero out. What lore or in-game evidence is there for Doomfist for sure right now? Well, we know that the character is a generational figure, like a Green Lantern or a Flash, if you're into your comics. A bunch of the dev team certainly are, it seems. So, like the Doomfist as a symbol and a weapon, there have been multiple people and forms of Doomfist over the years in the Overwatch universe. We also know that he's been a hero in one case, and seemingly a villain in another. For clues about Doomfist, you have to look around Numbani. Doomfist is heavily associated with the city in Africa. A city of omnic and human coexistence and peace, we know that Numbani, alongside Oasis, is seen as one of the technological marvels of the Overwatch world. In Numbani, a Doomfist exhibit is due to open at the Numbani Heritage Museum on Numbani Unity Day. This is a day every year where human and omnic cooperation and the spirit of the city is celebrated. Our task as players on Numbani is to transport Doomfist's gauntlets safely to the museum, or indeed prevent it, and it's from Numbani and the museum that we get most of our Doomfist info. If you keep up to date with the tickers and some of the other assets that Overwatch released on social media, there has been some slow progression in that storyline. Numbani has been mentioned as being under attack by a mysterious force, as shown here. At BlizzCon 2015's World of Overwatch panel, there was also a statement when Numbani was being described as a map saying that the residents are threatened by the villainous hero Doomfist. Now, we don't know whether this was a throwaway comment, as a lot of comments on the story back then have evolved and changed since. What we have seen most recently, though, is Sombra investigating the force that came after her, as she attempts to, in her words, find out who really runs the world. Now, in her origin trailer or conspiracy map, we can see the Doomfist, either the weapon or perhaps a Doomfist himself, connected to Numbani via a blueprint for what looks like a spider-style tank or walker, perhaps one of the Omnic threats that we've seen from the first Omnic Crisis and in several of the other assets showing the first Omnic Crisis, or maybe like these in the Overwatch Museum from the intro cinematic, as well as being linked to Talon. Now, we'll discuss Talon more later. What else do we know about Doomfist? We know that the Doomfist has been represented by at least 2 people bearing the name or title. In the Numbani Heritage Centre, promotional posters for the exhibit around the room and around Numbani show what history we know so far of past and present Doomfists. A little bit more info on these, I know it's been covered before. The saviour is Adhabu Ngumi. Sorry for the pronunciation if I've mauled it a little bit there. Apparently in Swahili this is translated literally as Doom or Punishment Fist, so a pretty literal name. The saviour seems to be more of a heroic figure. We'll go on to the gauntlet and the changes in it next as well. We then have the Scourge, whose name is apparently a combination of 2 Nigerian names from the Yoruba language or dialect, meaning the return of the strong one, while the second name means the crown suits me well, or the crown suits well. So in terms of names, that's not exactly humble, and it's sort of very much showing that this Scourge, whoever they may be, thought that they were certainly a worthy recipient of this title and legacy. If they're known as the Scourge though, whether they put that to good use or not, it's probably quite unlikely. Finally, we have this silhouette, which is the successor. We don't know for sure, of course, whether this is a person who exists right now or not, or perhaps it's kind of a space, an aspirational space for people to think of for perhaps a Doomfist in the future. That's for the individuals who bore the name Doomfist, but what of the actual gauntlet or weapon itself? We know from Timmy, the kid in the intro cinematic, that it could level a skyscraper, so clearly it's a very, very powerful weapon. With each generation of Doomfist, in the image that we see, the size and complexity of the gauntlet seems to increase. So the Saviour's Gauntlet appears to be a pretty simple set of a knuckle duster style weapon, and it's reinforced like armour up around to the middle of his forearm on his right hand. Move over to the Scourge. This slightly altered weapon looks more like an enclosed glove. or gauntlet, and this covers up to his elbow, with supports going up all of the way to his shoulder. It's now on his left hand. Comparing the intro cinematic weapon to these three, I'd probably say that this middle one is the one that it looks most like. The unknown third Doomfist, if indeed they are a person, has a gauntlet with, again, a similar design to the Scourge's, but the plating now covers the entire right arm up to the shoulder. Now, of course, like the silhouette, this weapon might not be real, it might be a fictional representation. We perhaps can't draw too much from the weapon designs as a result. There are differences in visual design, of course, and of course of the handiness of the weapon. If we take all of the visual examples we have in game, there are at least 4 designs of Doomfist thus far. The final thing that we know for sure is that Talon are after the weapon, or perhaps supporting the person who's either gone by or is currently going by the name Doomfist. Well, we've got 4 points of proof for this. Firstly, the intro cinematic for Overwatch, the museum trailer when Reaper and Widowmaker are trying to take this weapon. Next, we hear a Widow and Reaper interaction on Numbani.
Looks like we're working together again.
And let's hope it goes better than the time at the museum.
There's also Sombra's conspiracy image, which is the most recent one we've heard from just November of 2016. And then finally, the Reaper comment of
Doomfist should do his own dirty work.
This was a voice line that was in the game files and then I believe got added in the second half of last year, 2016. So that's what we know about Doomfist in lore and game at the moment. What facts, if you can call them those, that we have right now. So what can we speculate off the back of that? We have to remember, as of the intro cinematic in December 2014, the Doomfist was just a gauntlet, born from Chris Metzen's love of compound noun names, as he said in an interview with PC Gamer, rather than being anything hugely planned out. Soundquake as a name actually falls into this bucket too, by the way. It was some flavour for Blizzard at the point of announce of the game to give more of a sense of a wider universe being there. Metzen and Michael Chu in this PC Gamer 2015 interview, it's linked in the description below, talked a lot about how Overwatch's story was being organically put together and built as the team went, rather than the Warcraft and Starcraft approaches in the past where there had been a more top-down, build out a huge world form of storytelling, which, although it had its benefits, kind of got restrictive in different ways. As people's imaginations have been grabbed by Doomfist over the last year, and since Overwatch released last year, it seems that maybe, just maybe, he's coming to life in the future due to our interest, which is really, really cool. So, who is going by the name Doomfist currently, and why are Talon involved? It's worth noting that we don't know even if the Saviour or Scourge are both still alive or not. Both could be dead, both could be alive. That actually gives some really interesting possibilities for the stories, which I'll go on to in a sec. We can speculate there is at least one alive and active Doomfist though, and that he is a he, and that he's aligned with Talon. From Reaper's voice line on Numbani, it very much sounds as though that Reaper is grumbling that he has to help out Doomfist, whether it's directly or via Talon, to get his weapon back. The fact that Talon have gone after the Gauntlet also would hint towards this. We're not entirely sure as to Talon's agenda, bar wanting to stir tension between human and Omnics. However, given that they have quite willingly assassinated, killed, with little regard for bystanders or human life, we can be pretty sure that if Doomfist is working on the side of Talon, that he's not going to be up to much good. So, why are people excited for Doomfist coming sometime soon as a hero? Well, Terry Crews has recently got into PC gaming over the last few months in a big way, known for Brooklyn Nine-Nine and several other shows, as well as the Old Spice ads. After a suggestion on Reddit by user Sleepy Ricky in the late half of 2016 that Crews could be a really great voice for Doomfist, the actor himself responded pretty enthusiastically. Since he's been tweeting a lot about it, he's even been photographed at Blizzard HQ, officially going for a chat with them about who knows what, and then proceeded to tweet about Doomfist even more after. If that weren't enough, then Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson even seconded him and threw him out a tweet backing him up as well. After the hype and anti-hype that followed amongst the Overwatch community around Sombra's reveal and ARG and in general, I think it's quite unlikely Crews would tweet after visiting Blizzard if he wasn't doing something with them for the game, and equally that he'd be so actively tweeting about Doomfist as a character unless perhaps there was something to it. Terry's tweeted, The Rock's gone and retweeted him. That's massive social media promotional hype for Blizzard and for Crews. To turn around and for Crews not to be doing Doomfist, although possible, would feel like perhaps a bit of an anticlimax to some people. Who knows? Now, the fact that The Rock retweeted him is interesting in itself. Maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into this, but The Rock could potentially do some voice acting as well. We do know that there's a Saviour and a Scourge, at least in the history of the Doomfists. So, who knows, maybe one of The Rock or Terry Crews could be the Saviour, and the other could be the Scourge. That could give some interesting dynamics. In original images of the posters in Numbani at one point, the Saviour and the Scourge actually shared a name together, whether they were family or no. This was changed recently to the current names that we see in the level in-game. Wouldn't it be awesome if we had one Doomfist judging the other, both Doomfists still alive, maybe the Saviour is in retirement, and perhaps we see some of that in the Origin trailer somehow? if there was a Doomfist in future. The other theory that people have had, and I do like this one, is that the gauntlet is somehow sentient or has some kind of force speaking with it, and therefore you have a hero who's wielding it, and also the gauntlet has a voice of its own. You'd have to balance it quite carefully so that wasn't too silly, but it could be quite funny in a comedic way, I think. And it could certainly give Terry something to riff off. He does funny in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he's also done pretty serious as well in terms of acting and voice acting in other places. So, although people know him for being more comedy-centric recently, I'm pretty sure he could pull off a pretty serious reading as well. So what do you think of all of this Doomfist malarkey? Is it likely we're going to be seeing Doomfist as Overwatch's first tank hero or first hero of 2017? If so, what abilities do you think he might have and how do you think he might play? Would you like to hear Terry Crews voice him or would you prefer someone else? Do let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers for tuning into this video. It's been a bit of lore, a bit of speculation. If you like this video, do share it, throw a like, comment and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Big thanks to my patrons on Patreon who support me making longer videos. If you'd like to see how you can support my content and make me less reliant on advertising, do check out my Patreon link here. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammy. Take it easy.